This tape will explain to you just why I'm so miserable. This is called This Is Your Life. This is called This Is Your Life, Part 2. I suppose most people think that Marshall Sorkin was my first true love. What is love?
What is love? 6 feet of pimples and a crooked nose.
Yes, I'm afraid for me that's what it was. Well, things did get rather serious with Marshall Sorkin because on my 17th birthday, Marshall told me he had to come over because he had a very special present to give me. Mark was so sure it was going to be a ring that he gave me a fake ring earlier in the day. So I was sort of anticipating a ring myself. So as it got to be 7 o'clock, I waited patiently for that ring. Then the clock struck 8.
Where is Marshall? Where is Marshall? With the ring, with the ring. He's the guy you're dating. We are sick of waiting. Where's the ring? Where's the ring?
And Paris.
Where is Marshall?
Then the clock struck 9. I was beginning to get a little worried, but I figured, well, Marshall didn't drive, so he was probably waiting for the bus. But then the clock struck 10, and no sign of Marshall. Well, I figured he was going to ask me to marry him, so he was probably a little bit nervous about coming, so I figured he'd be there any minute. Well, then the clock struck 11. And I went around the block to look for him, but there was no sign of Marshall at all. Several buses had passed, but he just wasn't on them. Then the clock struck 12. And I realized something my pride did not want to let me admit. It's 12, and I must admit it.
How can Marshall be so heartless? How can Marshall be so cruel? Easy to be jilted. Oh, jilted. Oh, easy to be jilted. Easy to be jilted. Easy to be jilted.
Yes, and then I realized for the rest of my life I would be dead. So a couple years later, I decided I'd better try computer dating because things still weren't looking up. So I filled out the form. Gee, I had high hopes. I wanted somebody tall and dark and masculine and handsome with a rugged and sexy voice. So that day finally came when my computer date was to come. I opened the door, and there he was. And he said, "Hi there, Karen." And I said, "Oh, you must be Russell." And he said, "Yeah, I'm Russell." Gee, you're a little late. That's because I couldn't find my cookies. Gee, these are sort of unusual looking cookies. What are they made of? Snot bubbles. Listen, rather interesting man in my life, I must tell you about, which might explain to you why I'm so miserable. One day, when things were looking sort of bad, a furniture man came to our house and expressed an interest in me. He even asked me out for a date. Well, he was all very nice and all that. There was just one thing wrong with him. He weighed about 300 pounds.
Porky pig, a hot dog daddy and a rolling down. Porky pig.
So I was all ready for our big date. Naturally, our date was going to consist of going out to dinner. So he came to my door that night, all ready and eager for our date.
Hi, Karen. Are you ready to go?
So then we went out and had a very lavish and delicious 6-course dinner. Then after dinner, we were in the car, and he said to me,
why don't we go somewhere to eat?
And I said, oh, why don't we take a nice long walk along the beach? And he said,
chicken, Colonel Sanders.
And I said, well, why don't we take a walk in the park? And he said,
hamburgers, McDonald's.
And I said, gee, why don't we go back to my place? And he said,
Pizza.
Recently, I had a rather interesting misadventure. While in Las Vegas, my relatives and I happened to meet this very eligible bachelor from Canada.
Hello there. I'm an very eligible bachelor from Canada. I'm very rich. And I'm alone, and I like to have fun.
Oh, I have a very eligible niece. I would like you to meet Karen. Meet this eligible bachelor.
Oh, how do you do?
I've got to run. Run. Go anywhere. Fly to the girl.
And he took off faster than lightning. Just a few moments later, I happened to go over to the elevator to go up to my room. And I pushed the up button, and at the same time, a real eligible-looking guy pushed the up button, too. We waited for a few minutes, and then the elevator come. And it opened up, and I was thinking, oh, boy, now's my chance. I'm going to meet this guy as we're going up to the 11th floor. So I got in the elevator, but he wasn't coming in. And I said to him, going up? And he said,
No.
Going down.
the end.
Gee, Marty, you're so lucky not to come out here this time. Just think of yourself in that big house, all alone. You can do anything you want to do. Anything you want to do.